Happy Thanksgiving, everybody, from everybody in the Dobson household. And happy Skanksgiving from everybody in the Stormy Daniels household. Get it? Skanksgiving! Happy Vegan Virtue Signal Day. Oh, yes, if you turn on social media today, go on to your Twitters, your Tweeties, go on to your Facey Spaceys. You're going to see all the vegans out. All the Ricky Gervais posts about killing animals and how wrong it is to kill and eat meat. Oh boy, can't wait. Anyways, things to be thankful for. The Second Amendment, your right to protect yourself. Now listen, a lot of times we have a tendency to take things for granted. All people. Like you know what it's like. Have you ever like smashed your finger or burned your hand on the stove or something? Like got a serious enough injury to your hand, particularly like your power hand, like if you're right-handed, like if you hurt your right hand. Until that wound is completely healed, everything you do will remind you that your hand is wounded. You know what I mean? Every time you move it, like if you have a burn blister or something, every time you move your hand, you're just gonna be like, zzz, and you forget what it was like to be normal. You forget, you know? And then, you know, when everything's restored, like you forget what it's like to be in pain. And it's like we just take things for granted. We take our health for granted. We take our loved ones for granted. It's a very normal thing to do. That's why the practice of gratefulness and the practice of thanksgiving, you know, the giving of thanks on a daily and regular basis is so necessary and so metaphysical, because we naturally move to a place of taking things for granted. Is it granite? I think I'm going to open a granite store and it'll be free. Like everybody can just have free granite, and I'm going to call it taking things for granted. I don't know. I thought that was very clever. I thought happy Skanksgiving from the Stormy Daniels household. I thought that was even more clever. You have to remind yourself that there's a reason why you need to be grateful for your First Amendment and all that it entails. Your right to speak your mind, your right to write down and publish anything you want, right? As long as you're not, calling for specific acts of aggression against an individual or group of people. Your right to religious freedoms. There's a reason why you have to be grateful for those things. Because it's not normal. It's never been normal in the history of the world. We're the first. You have to be grateful for your Second Amendment right. Your ability to form a militia with your friends. And you might think to yourself, like, whoa, what do you mean form a militia? No, you actually have the right to form a militia. That's what the Second Amendment is. It's not just to have weaponry, it's to form a militia. That's the first line of it. And you think to yourself, like, oh, I'm never, how do you know you wouldn't form a militia? Blackwater did. I have a friend of mine, a guy that I know. Discovery Channel did a whole piece on him, on his business. He owns a militia, and they're called the Halo Corporation or Halo Group. They're out of San Diego, and what he does is like if your kid gets kidnapped or something, or goes missing, or somebody goes missing, you go to him, pay him an ungodly sum of money, and his team of men will track down, find your missing person, go in and extract that person, and very possibly have to kill everybody in the room. Him and his men have had to do that before. They've had to go into other countries and extract people and then kill everybody because there was a fight. You have the right to do that, right? And if the government of, like in the case of my friend, like I was talking to him about it, he's like, I asked him, so, if somebody, there was one case where somebody's daughter was kidnapped and taken down into Mexico and put on heroin and was just used as a prostitute. It was really it was horrific. And they went in and they took her and they had to kill a bunch of people and they came back. And I said, well, how do you get away with, like, what happens if the Mexican government says, hey man, America, like you had a bunch of your citizens come over and kill a bunch of our citizens. We can't have that. It's an act of war. And the thing is that when that happens, and it happens quite regularly, right? Blackwater is private citizens who went over to Iraq, got paid a bunch of money to kill a bunch of Iraqi militants. Those are private citizens. They're not regular, you know what I mean? They're not the Army or Marine Corps or whatever. You know, they're not Navy SEALs. They're probably ex. But the reason is, like, when the government comes and says, hey, America, like, you can't do that, the United States has to respond like, well, in our Constitution, these people do have the right to do that. And if you want to take it up with us, then that's you're gonna have to choose what you want to do. Do you want to go to war with us because we're not going to prosecute our citizens? They had every right to do that. So if you want to take over the United States, then F around and find out. Otherwise, you can try to encroach on our soil and try to take our citizens who did this thing that you disagree with and take them back to your country, but then you're going to have an issue with us because you can't be kidnapping our citizens. Or you can wait and try to catch them if they ever come back to your country, and at which point then you would have your say, but then we're going to come and try to protect our citizens. You know what I mean? That Second Amendment, it's not just, we have a tendency to look at these amendments and think, oh, they're just words, and they're versatile, and maybe we can add some little things to the Second Amendment to make it so that people can't get guns as easy, or maybe we can add some things to the First Amendment to make it so that anything that we deem as being offensive, we really shouldn't have offensive things going on. Let's just add a little bit. It's like, no, it doesn't work that way. This is the foundation of our way of life. It doesn't work that way. Be grateful. And forgive me if that explanation didn't make a whole lot of sense, but I could do a whole show. In fact, I was thinking about reaching out to that guy to come on the show, talk a little bit about that and how all that stuff works. I have actually very little knowledge of how to do it. I know that, like, if you want to form a militia, there's paperwork involved and whatever. Like, you have to register with the government. Just like, people always say, like, oh, you think you're going to fight the federal government? I mean, they have airplanes and tanks and drones and nukes and whatever. It's like, actually anybody can have that. Arnold Schwarzenegger was given a Harrier jet by, or maybe he bought it, but President Bush, the first one, approved it. You actually can own an F-18, right? With the proper registration, like you would have, just like if you owned any airplane, you would have to register it. You could own an F-18. It's not outside of the realm of possibility. It would be very difficult, but not impossible. You have to be grateful that you're living in America, that no matter where you go in the earth, you will be an American. Right? I'm in a country right now, I'm in a socialist country, and there are some very disturbing things that I see about this. Like, I'm seeing a whole different side of why socialism is bad. It's not just bad for the people of the country, like it's bad as far as like economic progress. It's bad for the soul. There are things that socialism causes that rot the soul. Like, you may have noticed in California recently, there was a public service announcement, like a television commercial that was instructing kids to take their parents' firearms and steal them, sneak them out of the house, and go to their teacher and turn them in. That's turning children against their parents. That has happened before. That is not an unprecedented thing. It's happened before. And spoiler alert, it happens in socialism. It's creating a culture of gossip. And it creates a culture of gossip. I'm in a country right now where gossip is a contact sport. It's a blood sport. And the reason why is because these people were very recently communists. And the thing is that when in communism, like, there's no food, there's no medicine, there's no water, there's no provisions, whatever. And the thing is that the government comes and says, hey, listen, you need to turn in your neighbors if they're dissenting. Like, if they're not completely on board the communist, agenda, you need to come and tell us, and we will reward you. And so what happens is that people become so needy for food and provisions and the health of their own children or whatever, that they're willing to say, oh, I saw my neighbor, blah, 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 blah. And then those people get arrested, and then those people go and get taken and go get tortured. And there are literally, in this country that I'm in right now, there are literally support groups for the people who were tortured, the people who were turned in by their neighbors and by their family members. And then we get into that, why it is that gossip is forbidden in the Bible. It's that reason. Socialism is bad for the soul. It turns people into monkeys. It turns people into wild apes, violent, unpredictable, and selfish, just crazy. Anyways, thank God. Thank God you have the right to protect yourself and your family with guns and militia, with guns and your friends. That's what you are to protect your family. And it's like, it is spelled out in our Constitution that this right of yours is God-given. And so that there is no argument about it. You want to argue it, then you're going to have to destroy the concept of God. And good luck with that. Right? Nice try, the devil. Like you've certainly scored some points over the last, 70 years or so, but no. Now the devil's little reign is over. Now it's time for the real Christians to step up. So what we're going to get into today, just really quick. I know it's Thanksgiving, and why are you listening to a podcast to begin with? It's Thanksgiving, man. Go eat some turkey. All right? Get some of that stuff in. Oh boy, some cranberries. I don't have any cranberries today, folks. But I wanted to talk about, just really quick, Laura Loomer. Listen, if you don't know who Laura Loomer is, she's an investigative, she's a true journalist, and there aren't very many of true, Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, the people at the Young Turks, the people over at CNN, those are not journalists. Those are celebrities. Those are people who get on TV, and they make money by being on TV, or on, TV being YouTube nowadays, television or YouTube. That's how they make their money. Those people do not go out themselves. They do not go and get the story. Somebody else goes and gets the story. That person that goes and gets the story, that's a journalist. The person who tells you what the story is, that's somebody else. There are very few true journalists left. Laura Loomer is one of them. Tim Pool is one of them. There's a handful of them, but you've got to look. Laura Loomer is a Jewish lady who just got kicked off of Twitter, which is a pretty regular occurrence, but this is something you have to watch for. Jack Dorsey evidently hates Jews and women because he kicked off Laura Loomer. Do you see what I did there? This is the danger of identity politics. This is the thing that leftists don't see coming when they virtue signal with no sort of sense of reason or accountability. Jack Dorsey is an anti-Semite now. He's a misogynist anti-Semite because he kicked off a Jewish woman off of Twitter. That's a fact, right? You see what I did there? You see that? See how that works, dear leftist? Check and mate. You go after Candace Owens, then you're a misogynist racist. You kicked off Laura Loomer, now you're a misogynist anti-Semite. Oh, you hate the Jews, do you? Oh, we've seen this one before, Jack Dorsey. Mean Mr. Mustache is coming back in the form of Jack Dorsey. He's a Nazi. He hates Jews and he hates women. And what did Laura Loomer get kicked off of Twitter for? For criticizing Sharia law. Now think about this. Think about this. Being critical of things you have to be critical of everything. You have to be critical of food. Right? You eat the wrong kind of foods, you're not going to make it. Right? If you eat foods that you're allergic to, you're not going to make it. Right? If you start eating, food that was prepared Like in the West, we have laws about how our food is prepared. Some of it's pretty nasty, right? You need to be critical of those things. If you end up eating some bad ham that's got a bunch of worms in it, like you're gonna have a rough time the rest of your life, right? You need to be critical of the kind of people that you hang out with. You need to be critical, like if you have to go find a new place of worship because you had to move, your company moved you or whatever, and you have to, find new Christians and find new, find new Jews or find new whatever, whatever religion you are. When you go into that new place, you have to be critical. Because if you go into a place and there's some preacher up there talking about like, hey everybody, good news, like there's a spaceship right behind the moon waiting for us and we're all going to drink this Kool-Aid and we're going to get beamed up to the ship, you're going to have to be like, whoa, hold on. I have something critical to say about that. You can't be, right? You have to be critical of everything. Or else you're running the risk of being surrounded by weirdos or eating bad food or having poor taste in music or clothes or whatever. You know what I mean? Like you have to be critical of everything. And when in the West, we are a nation of laws. And so when people come and they say, well, we want there to be Sharia law, you have to understand that this is the same thing as if the Jewish community, if the orthodoxy of the Jewish community stepped up and said, listen, we want to have kashrut law. We want to have kosher law, right? But we don't want it to just be our thing. We want it to be imposed on you, right? Like Jews, Orthodox Jews practice a different set of legal practices. When Ben Shapiro says, I don't eat pork chops or bacon, he's not saying like this is a personal choice for me. It's to him, this is his law. And he cannot break it or else he'll be in trouble. Right? If Ben Shapiro said, hey, Pete Dobson, hey, you can't eat bacon because I have this law, then we're getting into something totally different. Right? And if the Jews came and said, well, we want to have kosher law, we want this to be in the realm of what is protected by the federal government, we would have big problems. Wouldn't you? If another religion came in and said, we want to make it so that you can't eat pork, we would have problems. We want to make it so that you're not allowed to drive your car on Saturday. If kosher, if Judeo law was imposed, if Jewish law was imposed on you, you would not be allowed to drive your car on Saturday, eat pork, eat lobster. You would not be allowed to have, like a tear in your clothing. You wouldn't be allowed to walk around. You wouldn't, you would be prohibited from speaking to another woman who is not your wife, sister, daughter, mother. Right? If that happened, there would be problems. But the Jews don't do that. They don't take Jewish law and bring it to the federal court and say, we want this to be the law of the land. We want to have our laws recognized by the federal government. Right? They don't do that. Why? Because they're not assholes. And we can be critical of Jewish law. Right? Like I thank God that I am not under I don't actually thank God. I don't literally thank God that I'm allowed to eat bacon, but I'm pretty grateful for it. I love bacon. It's so good. But, here's Laura Loomer, and she's being critical of Sharia law, and why not? There's people in America right now that are trying to bring Sharia law into the federal system. They're trying to make it the law of the land. And it's like, okay, all right. Well, since I don't know anything about Sharia law, you're going to have to explain to me why you want Sharia law. Why is it better or more necessary than the laws that we have on the books? Is it against the law to murder people under Sharia law? Oh, okay, yes. Well, we already have that law then, so your law is unnecessary since we already have that law. If you want to do like the Jews do and just go home and understand, like, okay, The American, the white people call it federal law, the Jews call it Hebrew law, and we call it Sharia law, but it's all the same thing. You can go home, you can call it whatever you want, just as long as you don't murder anybody. It's against the law to lie to people in business and in contracts and in that sort of thing. It's against the law to do that. You can go home and you can call it Sharia, you can call it Hebrew, you can call it whatever you want. Doesn't matter what you call it. Is there a law in Sharia law that's better than the law that we have already when it comes to, why it's against the law to lie to people or murder people or whatever? Is it? My question to you is do you know what Sharia law is? Do you know what it is? Do you know what it says? Do you know what would happen if all of a sudden a federal judge or a local judge was legally obligated to consider Sharia law in the United States? Well, let me give you an example of what would happen. A woman that you know, a female that you know, could be anybody. Could be your mother, could be your wife, could be your sister, could be your daughter, could be your neighbor. A woman that you know, in this example, and I'm sorry to put this imagery into your mind on this Thanksgiving Day, but under Sharia law, if that woman that you know was raped, under Sharia law, she would not be able to complain unless there were no less than 4 witnesses that she was raped. 4. And if there were not 4 witnesses, then she would be labeled a harlot and would be eligible for execution. Thank you. No, thank you. We don't need your barbaric laws. We don't need your Sharia law. And if we catch you practicing Sharia law, you're going to be punished because that's murder. We have laws, and our laws are just fine. Thank you very much. And here's the thing about this. Okay, so this just happened yesterday. A federal judge orders female genital mutilation charges dropped in Detroit. Detroit has the largest Middle Eastern population in the United States. And there was that lady that was doing female genital mutilation. And she got busted. And she had $4.5 million bail. Right? It's a big deal. It's a big deal. They just dropped the charges on her. The reason why is it's actually pretty clever on the part of the defense. The law that she broke actually had to do with commerce. The law that says you cannot cut off a girl's clitoris in the state of Michigan evidently is under some commerce clause. And so the defense attorney said, well, this is stupid because cutting off a girl's clit doesn't cost anybody it doesn't cost our society any commerce. And the judge had to agree because it's that's kind of dumb. The way that the law was written was kind of dumb. And she got away with it. So it's kind of one of those good news, bad news things. The bad news is this crazy lady who's out there cutting off girls' clits just walked. But the good news is that we found another flaw in our legal system. You know what I mean? That law should have been, that law should have completely been written differently and in a different section. I don't know how that, but anyways, this is Sharia law, right? You want to get into a conversation of circumcision and female genital mutilation. It's okay, all right. I hate to be the guy that's well, that's different, but look, it is different, right? There's, I'm circumcised. I don't have any, loss of sensation, right? To my knowledge, right? Sex feels great, and I'm sure it feels great for uncircumcised dudes as well. It's again, I hate to be that guy. And look, I'm not advocating for circumcision. I'm not. I think that it's one of those things where if like you and your family want to do it, you guys go on ahead. But like, I don't know, there's just something creepy about female genital mutilation, because it's like, why are you doing this? There's no health benefits, right? There's no like hygiene. There's no hygiene benefits. All you're doing is, the only thing that can come from this is loss of sensation. I would have to imagine. I could be wrong about that. But Laura Loomer, I'm sorry for straying, Laura Loomer gets kicked off of Twitter in once again this, the silencing of the people. The silencing of the lambs, right? Here's this Jewish lady that gets kicked off by Jew-hating Jack Dorsey, who hates Jews and hates women, evidently, right? Because he kicked off a Jewish woman. See that left? See how that works? The Jew-hating, anti-Semite, Hitler-esque, mean Mr. Mustache, Jack Dorsey kicks off Laura Loomer for criticizing Sharia law. That's dangerous. Why would you not be able to criticize it? Because again, it's like, well, find your Muslim friend. Go talk to Keith Ellison of Minnesota. Go talk to these people that are advocating for Sharia law, and just ask them, like, what is different than in your law? What is different than the laws that we have? Oh, well, we have different procedures when it comes to butchering our animals and processing. It's called halal, right? For Jews, it's called kosher, and for Muslims, it's called halal. And we, if they say, well, under Sharia law, like, we have these different things, it's like, yeah, but we already have a place in our legal system for that. If you want to have, like Hebrew National hot dogs, like they have actual, like, priest, or not priest, but whatever, blessing the place during the day. We have it built into our laws that if you knowingly feed a Jewish person pork without their knowledge, that's against the law. If you knowingly sell meat to a Jewish deli that has not been properly processed under kosher law, you'll get into a lot of trouble. Same thing goes for the Muslims. So it's like, again, like, it comes back to, but why do you want Sharia law in the federal system, since we already protect your food laws and your, all that sort of thing? Like, the only thing that you're not protected on is beating your wife and killing your children or killing other people for getting raped. You know what I mean? Like, you have to ask them, like, why? Why is this important to you? Why should I accept this into my way of life? I'm not against the idea, right? It is built into our way of life that we, have it in our legal system where I, a Gentile, if I, kill and process an animal and butcher it, and then I sell that meat to some Jewish people, and I tell them, like, oh, this was done according to the laws of Moses, when it wasn't. If it turns out that it can be proven that I did that, like, I knowingly deceived them in selling them that meat, it's against the law. It's against our laws. So I'm already open to the idea. It's like, hey man, if you've got a better idea as far as our laws are concerned, I'm open. Like, I've said this many times before, like, I don't think marijuana should be illegal. I do not like that law, and I think it should be changed. There's plenty of laws that need to be changed. So if you are advocating for Sharia law, come and tell me. Let me hear what you have to say. And the minute that you start talking about, well, we want to be able to, beat our women because it says, in the Quran, like, you got to keep your hose in check. You got to keep a steady pimp hand, right? You got to keep your pimp hand strong. Say, well, we're not going to sanction that. We're not going to let you be protected by some bullshit regulation that allows you to beat your wife or to kill some lady that got raped. You know what I mean? Like, we're not going to do that. And the fact that there are people like Jack Dorsey who hates Jews and hates women, the fact that there's people out there like that who will take Laura Loomer, who was just being critical, and try to silence her, thus making her more famous, which is another thing. You leftists, man, congratulations on everything. Like, you're just making it so more people are like, ooh, who's Laura Loomer? I never heard of her before. Who's Laura Loomer? You know what I mean? Competition, man. Competition. I can't wait till whatever the new Twitter is, right? There used to be MySpace, and then it became Facebook, and then Facebook. There used to be Facebook, and then it became Twitter, and there used to be Twitter, and then it became Instagram, and then, you know what I mean? Like, competition drives people out of business for being, for not growing up and not understanding that, like, what the true will of the people is. This Jack Dorsey guy, it's like, dude, keep shooting yourself in the foot, idiot. Anyways. So Laura Loomer was being critical of it. So critical how? Was she saying that all Muslims should be put to death because they practice Sharia law? Was she saying that Keith Ellison needs to be put to death because he's advocating to bring Sharia law into the state of Minnesota? No, she wasn't doing any of that. Right? Was she saying, what was she saying? Or was she just being critical of, like, well, you've got these weird ancient rules that allow you to beat your wife and stone women to death and throw gays off of the top of roofs. No, you can't have Sharia law in the Western world. It's actually already in Europe, but no, you can't have that in the United States. We're not giving that to you. I'm critical of this because you've got some really crazy, barbaric laws on your books. No, we're not doing that. And she got she got silenced. Silencing journalists, right? Donald Trump pulls a press pass from one guy. And the left is like, oh my God, it's Hitler. He's moving to nationalize the news media to control it all. It's like, no, he just took one guy's press pass. Because he was being an asshole. And we all saw it. And he put his hands on a woman. And we all saw it. Laura Loomer is an actual journalist. She has an actual degree in journalism. We get every video of her that she's like posted is her being a journalist. And Jew-hating, woman-hating Jack Dorsey bans this journalist from Twitter because he doesn't want her message getting out. Can't have real journalists going around. This is the tactic of the satanic left. This is their tactic. This is what they do. They'll look at Donald Trump and they'll try to get everybody's attention to look at him and be like, look, he's trying to silence the media. Meanwhile, Jack Dorsey, the anti-Semitic, woman-hating, mean Mr. Mustache that he is literally silencing, doing whatever he can do to silence this one journalist. Right? Nothing that Donald Trump did to Jim Acosta. Yeah, he didn't make it so that Jim Acosta couldn't be on CNN anymore, that he couldn't be on TV anymore. Right? He just said, you can't be in this press room with me anymore. You can't be in the same, I don't want you in the same room with me. I don't like you. I'm pulling this pass from you because I don't like who you are as a person. But he didn't say like CNN has to be out of here or you can't go back to work and go get on TV. He didn't do that, but Jack Dorsey did. Oh no, you can't be on this platform anymore. We don't want you. We don't want to hear we don't like you, Laura Loomer, the same way Donald Trump doesn't like Jim Acosta. We don't like you. But the difference is that what the limited power that Jack Dorsey has is what he can do is he can say, I don't want anybody to hear you. I don't want anybody on this channel, right? Because that's really what social media is. It's the new television, and these are the channels. Channel Facebook, channel Twitter, channel Instagram, channel Gab, channel YouTube, whatever. And on this channel, we're not going to allow you to have your face on it anymore. That's Nazi power. That's Nazi power. Silencing the media. It's the new, social media, and it's the new book burning. Right? So anyways, be grateful that you can see it this time. Because, the thing about Nazi Germany, like that whole, I've said this many times, one of the main reasons why that happened is because nobody knew. Nobody could see it. Right? Why did Christians get fed to the lions? Right? Well, because they were unarmed. They didn't have the Second Amendment. Right? They couldn't speak up. They didn't have the First Amendment. You know what I mean? Like, be grateful. Be grateful right now. Be grateful that Nazi Jack Dorsey, who hates Jews and women, just did that. Not to be grateful for that, but be grateful that you could see it. Because 80 years ago it was happening and nobody could see it. There were people that lived in Germany that had no idea that any of that stuff was going on until long after it was over. Because there was no such thing as social media. There was barely such a thing as television. Barely. You know, be grateful that you can see it. And be grateful that you know that your right to speak, and your right to write things down and publish them, and your right to express your religion however you want, as long as it doesn't interfere with anybody else's life, Sharia law, that your right to protect yourself and come together with your friends and form a militia and protect yourself and your family. And that your right to be free from government, coming into your home and seizing your property. I'm telling you folks, it's coming. It's coming. And if you're not grateful for these things, then if you're not grateful for them, then why wouldn't you give them up for food? Why wouldn't you give up your rights for security, for medicine, for your sick baby? Why wouldn't you go to the police and tell them about your neighbor and say, hey, I don't think he's one of us. I don't think he's really on board. I heard him saying some things. Let me tell you something. It made me uncomfortable. I think he's got guns in his house. I think you guys should check him out. Oh, and before you go, where is my reward for telling on him? Give me my medicine for my sick baby. If you're not grateful for your freedoms, you will very quickly give them up. Anybody, me included, anybody. Like, if you are not consciously, if you are not in possession of gratefulness, if you don't practice gratefulness, if you don't practice thanksgiving, like next week when you go back to work and you're sitting in your car and you're driving to work, utter the words, thank you, Lord, that I am able to purchase weaponry whenever I want. Say it out loud. It's going to feel a little funny. I promise you, it will feel a little funny because it's like, why am I saying this? Of course I can buy a gun whenever I want. I can go down to the right. I can go down to the camping place. I can go to Big Five right now. Buy a 30-06. No questions. Put a couple $100 down on the counter. Get my rifle. I walk out. Easy. It's like buying a cheeseburger. It'd be like saying, driving down the road saying, Lord, thank you that I can buy, 2 McDonald's cheeseburgers for 99 cents. Like, you wouldn't do that because it's like, why would I be grateful for that? It's like, it feels silly vocalizing, but you have to understand, your right to protect yourself with weaponry, with the weapons of war. That's unprecedented. This is something that is particularly our thing. Poland gets it now, right? Hungary gets it. Like, those people in Eastern Europe, they're getting ready. They're getting ready because they see what's coming. The European Union is coming for Poland. And boy, they're going to get a big surprise when they encroach. They're getting ready. Things are heating up in Europe and things are heating up in the United States. You have Congress people and senators that are talking very compellingly about coming for your guns and curtailing your speech. Guess what? Everybody on the left, they're all on board. Jack Dorsey, who hates Jews and women, he loves the idea of silencing people and taking away their power. If you can emasculate a man, if you can take away his power, you can subdue him. That's the significance of the Second Amendment. They don't want your guns so that you don't kill other people. They want your guns so that you don't kill them. Be grateful, right? Be grateful that you can see Jew-hating, woman-hating Jack Dorsey silencing journalists. Be grateful that you can see it, because that lends itself to you'll be able to see other stuff as it comes down the pike. That's the show for today. If you want to listen, if you don't support the things that you like, then they go away. All right? It's that simple. Hit subscribe, would you? If you're listening on the podcast, if you haven't, double check and make sure you've hit subscribe already. Right? Don't accidentally unsubscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, hit subscribe. And if you want to support the show with dough, go on to archadvocate.com. arch-advocate.com. And you can either if you want to do a monthly Patreon thing, I would appreciate that. Some people prefer PayPal, that's PayPal.me/archadvocate. Archadvocate.com, both of those links are there. And that's it. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Be grateful. Be thankful. And vocalize it. Write it down. Don't lose sight of it. Practice your gratefulness for these things, because if you don't, you will be more likely to give them up. And that is the sermon, if you will, for the day. God bless all of you guys. Eat up. Have a good time. We'll talk to you tomorrow.